You know, some people enjoy composing their own music, chord by chord, and others are happiest when they come across that one perfect song. Work is not a lot different than that. Whether you prefer building your own workflow or using a pre-made template, with Monday.com, you and the team can work in a way that's comfortable for everyone. Tap the banner to go to Monday.com and build your own amazing workflow, or find an awesome template. No judgment.
Welcome to the RuPaul's Drag Race Recap Show for Season 11, Episode 9, titled Ladp. My name is Joe Betance, and I am joined, as always, by one felonious co-host. From the podcast Pod is my co-pilot. Please say... to Taylor...
What?
Taylor, the Latte boy. What's so confusing?
I have no idea what they just said, but that's fine.
It's Plastique
that's
saying,
fine.
I'm not Japanese!
Oh.
Taylor, I don't think, for probably the first time in a very long time, I don't think you and I have spoken on all this week, really, have we?
No, not at all. Barely in text messages.
Yeah, I bet Taylor's been happy about that.
Yeah, but we don't have time to catch up now because we have a very full show.
Good point, Taylor. Good point. I agree. This week, Brooke and Evie are relieved to see another week, and Silky doesn't think she can do anything differently. The library is open, and this time the girls read each other, and also read right back. In the Maxi Challenge, it's a sketch comedy challenge, and the girls work in teams to bring their best Reno 911 realness. On the runway, the look was Face Kini Fantasy, and Silky didn't beat her face. In the end, Akuria was named the winner of the challenge. Meanwhile, Vanjie and Plastique were placed in the bottom two and forced to lip-sync against each other for their lives. In the end, Vanjie was told, Shantae, you stay, while Plastique Tiara was asked to sashay away. Taylor the Latte Boy, name 2 things you liked about the episode and 1 thing you did not.
This week was tough. This week, I knew going in that this was never going to stay at the level as of the last episode. I was just kind of assuming it would be the lip sync that would not be at the level of last week's lip sync. But this week, it kind of felt it was hard to follow in that the editing was really, really weird this week. Like they were trying to kind of direct you to feel things you hadn't necessarily felt about characters yet or about some of the contestants. And then there were other people that they were praising them for things that weren't that great, and they weren't paying attention to people that were doing well. The whole thing was it was a very weird episode this week. 2 things that I liked were I liked some of the performances for the LAPD. And the only other thing that I could think of was I like Cheyenne Jackson's arms. They were fun to look at. And his hairy legs too. That's
right. You love hairy legs.
I love hairy legs. And at one point where Plastique is wrapped around his leg, I was kind of like, well, hello, nurse. Something I didn't like. There are many things that I did not like about this episode. The one thing though is the reading challenge was probably the worst reading challenge in the history of the show.
It's so funny because I don't remember. I think it's the Hollywood Reporter or Boing Boing. I don't know. One of these magazines, right? They have someone who does, it might even be Vice, who does a recap of RuPaul's Drag Race. And she was being kind of dragged online because she said it's one of the best reading challenges.
The AV Club.
Oh, the AV? Onion AV Club?
Because I read it today. When she said that, I was like, what? But okay. Yeah, so it was the AV Club.
Oh, okay. She was saying it was one of the best ones in years. And I was like, I don't agree. Now, one of the things I want to do right here, Taylor, before we address everything you said, is I got a number of emails last week, okay, about the fact that Joanne Worley is still alive, okay? Now, most of these emails, so first of all, apologies to Joanne Worley, but
who was a devoted fan of the show.
Who was a devoted fan of RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. I made the mistake, and I could have sworn I saw that she died last year, but apparently she did not. And so, apologies, I made a mistake, right? We do this show, we spout things off, and I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And we literally got a lot of emails about this. Most of them were on either Twitter or Instagram, maybe via email or Patreon. And they were all like, love the show. Hey, Joe, FYI, Joanne Warren is alive. Except this one guy emailed us at dragracerecap@gmail.com. Did you see this email, Taylor?
No, I saw, is it the one line?
Yeah.
Email?
Yeah,
but I didn't see what your response is.
He writes to me, he goes, Joanne Worley's still alive. And he goes, geez. And I go, really, asshole? Sorry that I made a mistake. Everybody, I'm not mad that people point out I made a mistake. I was actually amused by it, right? People were like angry. Oh, how dare you make a mistake? This show needs to be perfect at all times. So I just wrote something cunty back to him. I just said, first of all, we'll address this on the show. And then I said something along the lines of, what did I write, Taylor? I know you're looking at it right now.
No, I can't see it. That's what I'm talking about. The way my email is set up, I can't read. I can see some of your responses some of the times, and other times I see a title to an email, but it says this email has no content.
Yeah.
Because I have it all set up through my mail app on my computer.
So anyways, apologies to while I bring up the email, apologies to Joanne Worley, apologize to anyone who was hard-pressed because I made a mistake and said someone was dead. For all the people who've never made a mistake ever in their lives, I'm so sorry that happened. Okay, so I wrote back, yes, we've heard, we'll correct it on the next show. What an honor to get an email from the person who has never made a mistake in his life. I bow to you, sir.
Joe, okay.
Well, why is it leave such a cunty email? Like, look, people, and by the way, there are people who made fun of me, but they coupled it with something nice. It wasn't like, they didn't have that sense of anger that this guy had. Yeah. You know, I don't know why the guy was so angry. Just angry that we got with Joanne Worley. Cut to his name was Michael Worley. It's her son. Okay, let's get to what you said. So you really liked what again? Just
Cheyenne Jackson's arms.
Oh yeah, Cheyenne Jackson's legs. I should have recognized that when you. Yeah, his arms and his legs.
Arms and legs. And I liked some of their performances in the LADP.
Yeah, LADP. Okay. All right. I have a lot to say about these, but I guess I won't address Cheyenne Jackson's arms and legs. So yay for you. And then on the thing you didn't like the reading challenge. We'll talk about that in the episode. Great. All right, very good. After the double Shantae, Brooke isn't angry about being in the bottom. Evie is glad she held her own against Brooke, and Silky says there's nothing she can do to change in the competition. The next day, RuPaul entered the workroom to open up the library. Nina bombs. Plastique is forgettable. Vanjie makes no sense. Evie's alright. Was Suga even there? Brooke does well, but copied her Mimi I'm first joke. Akiria does the best, but loses, and Silky goes batshit crazy. In the end, RuPaul named Brooklyn Heights the winner of the challenge, which gave her an advantage in the Maxi Challenge. Taylor the Latte Boy, what were your thoughts on the cold open and then everything leading up to, I guess, the end of the reading challenge? What were your thoughts?
It felt they were definitely telegraphing it in as far as that there was going to be an issue with Silky. My hope was that it had gone to the place where this was the week Silky got eliminated, but I guess not. But the whole thing of there's nothing I could do. I'm perfect. I'm doing exactly what I need to do. I'm not apologizing for it. And then got read to filth for her lack of eye makeup later on. You kind of knew that was going to be a major part of the story. I can't think of anything else that happened in that first. It seemed very Silky focused. Or at least that's where my attention was, which I know Silky on the surface, I think Silky would like that, but not the way my attention was. They're making it increasingly more difficult to find anything likable about Silky. You know, it's one thing when she's sort of this loud, bombastic, just over the top, which, you know, in portions can be handled. But when we're starting to get arrogant on top of that, that to me, that's a buy. Like, you know, need help packing queen, because I don't need that on my TV.
So here's what I'm going to say. So I actually rewatched. Did you get a chance to rewatch the episode?
The only thing that I rewatched was the LADP.
Okay,
skits.
so I got a chance to rewatch the episode actually, and here's what's funny. I'm so over Silky. She just really bugs the shit out of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, and this will happen in several points today, I have some mild, I don't know if I should say defenses of what she said, but I listened more closely and I got what she was saying, and it's a little more subtle. It's a little more subtle than what we think. So, for instance, at the top of the show, there's the part, now, by the way, this comes up later, but in the cold open, when Akaria asks, I believe it's Akaria, is there anything you can change, anyone can change about the judge's critiques? Silky responds. And what she says is very, very interesting because she's actually right. The first thing she goes, no. And the next thing she says, but she says so quick you could miss it if you're just watching the show in a casual way. She says, I packed what I packed. And then goes on to say, talk about, like, basically, essentially, there's nothing she can do. And then she tops it with, and I'm doing really well anyway, and clearly I'm not talentless. And so you gloss over it. But she's right. I mean, what else? They give them a list of the outfits they're going to wear. You get your outfits based on that list. What more, unless you have specific time to create a look or make a dress, what more can you do?
Well, that's just it, though. If it's a situation, take, for example, Vanjie.
But Vanjie's a good example, yeah.
Vanjie brought the same amount of stuff and had the whole thing of where she, she's being read to filth on it. But when she started to panic about it, there is, as Evie said earlier in the season, there are rolls and rolls of fabric that they can create something if they need to. So if this is a situation, it happens to be working out for Silky to some degree, that her looks are all what they like and everything. But in a chance where she's going to have to make something, that could really fuck her up.
I don't agree. I don't think the judges are liking Silky's looks. I think Silky's getting by completely on personality. She generally scores pretty low on looks.
Well, okay, yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it just came off as arrogant. I mean, that's the whole thing. I think in the beginning, there was sort of that. It came off as arrogant, and it came off as rubbing your nose in it. Because, once again, you have a situation in which, and I know that we've got a week to process this, and this only happened within the course of a couple of hours. But you've still got that where she feels the need to throw that talentless word out there after Evie just almost got sent home. Yeah. Which just kind of feels like a punching down sort of thing. Even though Evie and Brooke had the amazing lip sync, I think that it gets to a point where when you're making statements, again, this is my narrative, is that, they seem to really like me, so I'm not going to do anything to change, which I guess makes sense. However, what I'm hearing in that is, so if something changes, I don't need to listen anymore because I've already got this figured out. I just have to keep doing what I'm doing. But that is not necessarily always going to apply in every single challenge. And that is when, if she keeps with that level of arrogance, it could potentially not suit her down the line.
I think there's an element of that. Yes, I agree. But I mean, there is an element though of like, what's done is done. I mean, and Vanjie is right. I don't know how much time they get to actually make an outfit from scratch. I mean, that takes a long time. All right. What about the reading challenge? You did not like the reading challenge at all.
I think that it is time to retire the reading challenge.
Okay.
I think the reading challenge should be something that is reserved for all-stars.
Okay.
I almost feel that way about Snatch Game too. But I think that it's one of these that the girl, I'm going to say something and then completely contradict myself.
All right.
This is one of these things that the girls know that eventually at some point there is going to be the reading challenge. Okay. So much like we saw with Snatch Game last week, you would expect them to come prepared. And it seemed very clear that this group of girls did not seem to be prepared for this challenge. There were very few jokes that landed. And I know I listened to the first response this afternoon, And the joke, the Precious joke, I knew that joke. Where I immediately was like, that's, yeah, it was in a commercial. And I've also seen it I've watched a couple of the Haters Roast videos online. And Trixie, I think, says that joke too. Or I know it was a Mimi I'm First joke, but I feel like Trixie has said it as well. I
believe I remember, I know there was this controversy, you would hear it in the rumor mill, about Mimi I'm First stealing a Jackie Beat joke. But I remember, I think in that controversy, I could be wrong, Jackie also sells jokes for the roasts. And for some reason, I remember somewhere reading that Jackie Beat had originally written that joke. I could be wrong. Maybe Mimi I'm First really did create that joke. But if I remember correctly, I thought I remember reading that Jackie Beat wrote that joke and sold it to somebody.
Yeah. And I know that there have been where people they've had writers work on jokes for them in the past. That's been the rumor, that it's not all quite so off the cuff. It just, I don't know if it was execution. I don't know if it was nerves. I don't know if it's talent. I don't know what it is, but it just seemed very much like it was either crickets or we were laughing way too hard at things. I think have I talked about on an episode of the show with you, the Andrew Dice Clay video?
No.
Have we talked about? Okay. I will make this quick. So back when I was in college, back when Blockbuster Video was still around in the 90s, a bunch of us that lived in the dorms, me and a couple of other of my dorm mates, we would all occasionally go to Blockbuster Video. We would rent videos. And one of the things that we got into the habit of doing was we got into the habit of renting stand-up specials, stand-up compilations, that kind of stuff. We would watch those. And on one of them we rented it specifically because it had Andrew Dice Clay on it. And this was back in like 91, 92, when he was starting to the downward trajectory, but he was a big deal at this point. So we watched this video and it's all of these stand-ups with the curtain behind them and the microphone and the crowd. And then all of a sudden there is this like skit type thing of where he comes and he's talking to somebody that is clearly supposed to be either the owner of the nightclub or some guy. And the guy's got like two girls that are in like bikinis, like on like with his arms around each of their waist. And Dice walks into the room and starts saying all of these jokes, but he's saying them really fast. And he's like, just kind of like, like going through them super, super fast. And this guy is doing this like laughing too hard at the jokes. And the girls are kind of laughing because he's laughing. And it was where it wasn't funny. And then Dice just kind of was like, all right, guys, I got to go. Puts a cigarette in his mouth and he walks out. Like the whole thing was like of this 90-minute thing. It was like maybe a 3-minute skit, but they had him where he was front and center on the cover. A lot of these, particularly Silky's, felt like that where everybody was because she was horrible. She was just screaming. But for whatever reason, Rue thought it was hysterical. So all the rest of them standing there felt like they had to laugh at it too. It was just not good. I got the sense that
they were laughing because they didn't know what the fuck she was doing. Like they know her, they're with her, and like they're like, what is going on? I think they were just by the ridiculousness of it. That's why they were laughing. That's the sense that I got.
Yeah. Well, this was definitely where she said at one point, this is the first time that I think I've ever seen the readers get read back at them, where it almost became a heckling type thing. Yeah, but it was funny. It was the same joke. It was weird. Like okay, for instance, Suga says a joke to Silky, like, you're Silky, but this silk has an expiration date, or this milk has an expiration date, or something like that, right? Yeah.
And what the joke being is that you're going to go home soon, and then Silky goes, well, you have an expiration date. You're going to go home. And you're like, that is literally the joke she was saying. And same thing with the Akira, what are you resting on? That was a decent one back, but it was still it was the same joke.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there were 3 plastic tiara instead of plastique tiara jokes. And it wasn't good. I think as I said previously in this season, they got to do something to mix it up for the next contestants. The contestants are getting too much where they know, or they think they know, what the challenges are and what they need to do to, again, I just have to make it to Snatch Game. I just have to make it to the reading challenge. I just have to make it to the final 4. I'm not seeing hunger. I'm not seeing drive. I'm not seeing anybody talk about how much they want the crown. You know, as much as I was never a big fan of hers in season 7, that was something Violet Chachki seemed super, super focused on. I want to be the winner, not I want to be able to, you know, up my fee for going into clubs, not I just want to make it onto like a haters roast or something. I want to be America's Next Drag Superstar. So like her or not, you have to respect that. I am not seeing that with any of these girls. They're all just kind of, they're there because they know this is going to up their publicity. This is going to up their name.
So what did it do with the reading challenge? You like the reading challenge?
Because I used to love the reading challenge. The reading challenge was one of those things that I really, really loved. And there are jokes from season 2 that I remember. I really couldn't tell you anything, any of the jokes from last night, except for the ones that I'd already heard in previous YouTube videos that I'd seen.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to get to Brooke, but this is case number 1 of Brooke being a joke thief. Okay.
Yeah.
And let me make this point now, because in my head, even though the joke is more relevant later on, but I don't want to forget it. Is, you know, we have an Instagram account that is managed by one of our listeners named Steven Starling. He does, I would say, 4 or 5 days of the week. He posts those posts, right? But I do about 3 of them. Okay. And I would say about 1/3 of the 2/3 of the time, it's just a post that I saw on Reddit that I thought was really funny. I would say I create one of 3 of them, and then the other 2 are Reddit posts that I go to such great lengths to make sure they get credit. It's on the actual meme. I mention it in the notes, in the comments. You know, I want to make sure that the person gets the original credit, whoever came up with that joke, right?
Right.
And I didn't see any evidence, and this will become important later with the level 5 vegan joke, that Brooke had any interest in doing that. And like, so I really do. Now, by the way, but I haven't seen on social media her addressing this at all. Okay. I know that if I would have said this on the show and they edited it out, I would have gone on Twitter and Instagram immediately and been like, hey guys, big props to The Simpsons that I stole their joke, or big props to Mimi I'm First, or Jackie Beat, I used this joke, XYZ. Actually, I think in the commercial, Thorgy says the joke. I don't remember who says the joke on the commercial. But the point is, there's been nothing. She's just been quiet, as if she created the joke, and it frustrates me. There's nothing more heinous in comedy than being a joke thief. That's why everyone hates Loy Rockenkamp. Okay.
This is actually something we're going to go back to, what you are saying when we get to the looks, because there was something similar happened with the looks this week that I've been following that kind of shows the juxtaposition of how Brooke is handling this versus another queen in the competition.
I know who you're talking about. Can't wait to hear it. Now, a couple of things here. To me, for my money, I'm not saying it was great. To me, Akuria was the winner, not Brooke. To me, Akuria was funnier than Brooklyn Heights. That's just for my money. I don't know what your opinion is.
I remember Akuria. I chuckled a couple of times at things that Akuria said. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what any of those jokes were.
I didn't say you could. I'm just saying of the ones that were there was the best. Also, did you notice they didn't show Evie and Silky reading each other?
Yes, I did notice that too.
They did not show.
I was going to bring that up as far as I wonder if they either maybe they chose not to read each other or what. But that did not go on, because I was almost waiting for that. That was almost you wanted to see the reactions, because they've done that in the past with other queen, you know, Ben and Darian reading each other, and with Thorgy and Bob reading each other, Aquaria and Cracker when they were still kind of competitive with one another reading each other. So to not show that felt like a letdown.
All right, very good. All right, for this week's Maxi Challenge, the girls will be performing in an improvised comedy sketch titled LADP. It stands for Los Angeles Drag Patrol. The girls will be working in teams of 2 in various scenes. As the winner of the mini challenge, Brooke got to assign the teams, and she assigned them as follows. Brooke, Lynn Heights, and Nina West, and they were doing Indecent Exposure at the Trailer Park. We had Vanessa Vanjie Mateo and Plastique Tiara in A Cat Fight at the Liquor Store. We had Acaria C. Davenport and Evie Oddly in Twerking Girls Corner Disturbance. And we had Silky Nutmeg Ganache and Sugarcane in Back Alley Butt Pads. All right. In the workroom, Nina and Brooke talk about their roles. Nina wants to play against type, but Brooke is too nervous to take any risks. Nina reluctantly agrees to play to type. During the table visits, RuPaul entered the workroom and talked to each of the teams. Silky doesn't think she can top herself, while Sugar knows she hasn't done well in acting challenges. Plastique is not going to do a Vietnamese accent, while Vanjie is going to try to give her character an emotional arc. Ru calls Evie out on her terrible snatch game, and Acaria worries Brooke about whether Acaria can bring the energy. Finally, Ru calls out Brooke about her terrible snatch game performance, while Nina has to bring all of her experience and energy to this performance. Oh yeah. And Acaria is angry that Brooke may have said she doesn't have a personality. A lot here, Taylor. What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on the idea for the challenge of like a sketch comedy challenge?
I love the idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of it. And I think that a couple of the skits were actually successful.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since we've seen a skit like that, or a challenge like this,
Mm-hmm.
which is skits, particularly skits outside of the studio,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where they kind of had to do day drag. There is something slightly not racist, but there is where there's like the jokes about hookers. There is something kind of old school drag humor about this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I get you also that well seems to be still full of something for Ru. So I enjoyed the idea of it. I did enjoy the idea of it. What do you think?
Okay. First of all, I want to start with a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Last week, I said, you know what? I don't think that this double Shantae was planned. It's because it was really genuine and it was worth it. Right? It was deserved double Shantae. Yet the following episode, they need 8 queens in 4 challenges.
Oh.
Now, I was thinking about this. Now, hold on. Hear me out, though. There is a workaround for this. There is a workaround.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone should know when you're doing television or movies, nothing is done on the fly. So a lot of times TV shows, not a lot of times, this is the way it is. Television shows and movies have a very long pre-production period. That's when all the logistics for what's going to happen gets sorted out. They rent props, they do, they set up locations, they hire actors or extras, everything. They don't do anything on the fly. The only thing that happens when they're shooting is that they execute everything that got planned in the pre-production. Nothing is left to chance. All right?
Yeah.
Because it takes weeks to get that shit. I will say, of the 4 challenges, one of them seemed like one that they could whip together. So it could have been that maybe there were originally only going to be 3 sketches, okay? Mm-hmm. And there was going to be a third person in one of those sketches. It probably could have been a cat fight in the alley or the liquor store or whatever.
I was going to say the twerking girl. They could have had 3 twerking girls.
They could have had 3 twerking girls. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. But the reason that didn't make sense to me, though, is, hear me out, is the other 3 had elaborate props. So the back alley butt pads had a car, it had the butt pads, had all kinds of props. Chicken, an iron, So that one was probably planned from the beginning. The naked person, that had a whole trailer and a set and everything. Boom. Done.
Right.
Cat fight in the alley, they could have just used one of the sets on the lot, right? And just made it look like a liquor store. Maybe there was an existing liquor store or something on the set, or maybe there's some sort of commissary.
Yeah, well, there was definitely a sign that was made called Kitty Liquors.
Oh, really? Okay,
that was made for the front.
But now you could whip that together. So I think you're right. But Twerking Girls had nothing. It was just they could have found a location. It was right outside the studio. Boom, done, instant. They could do it. They could whip it together. That's why I think Twerking Girls could have been whipped together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, without much pre-production planning. Or it also could be they always plan to have a double Shantae at some point, and then this one was just worth it. I don't know. Conspiracy theory. What do I know? Okay. Okay. Those were your thoughts on the challenge, correct? Now, let's talk about the moment where Nina and Brooke are talking about their roles, and Nina wants to play against type. Nina wants to be the person who's sunbathing, and then Brooke is supposed to be the one who comes out of the trailer park, and then Brooke's really nervous, so Nina, to be nice, switches back to what Nina to the play with type. What were your thoughts on that moment? It comes back later, but what were your thoughts?
Well, I think initially you could tell Nina was slightly disappointed that she wanted to do something that was maybe a little outside the box, and just the comedic value of being a larger person, kind of being this naturalist. I mean, I think that it worked out. That's one of those skits that I think could have worked either way, whether it had been that either of them were the nude sunbather. You obviously got Brooke kind of doing her thing with all of the dance moves and that kind of thing. But I think had it been a larger gal that was out there smearing suntan lotion or sun oil or whatever on her, that still would have been funny. And that Brooke could have played the harried woman has this naked person on her front lawn. I thought Nina as the homeowner with the Reba McEntire hair and the Barefoot Contessa Shent thing going on, I thought she did really, really well with that. But I think either one of them could have gone either way. It just, given Brooke's recent failure at Snatch Game, I can see where Brooke would be a little bit scared. But that could have bit her in the ass too. That could have definitely bit her in the ass, that they could have said, you played it too safe.
Well, okay. You're right. I think it would have been very funny to play against type. I think it would have been funnier. But we'll get to that when we get to the actual sketch. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is they show, back to Brooke assigning the roles, they show us a shady confessional spot with Evie where she says, well, obviously, Brooke rigged it to her advantage. Right? And I was like, yeah, dummy, this is a competition. What did you expect her to do?
And Brooke could have been really shady and put Evie and Silky together.
Yeah. Yes. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. She could have. And I also think it's shady what she did too. She should have put Vanjie with Silky.
Why?
Because Silky's better.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I could see. So anyway, we'll get back to the logic. All right. So now we go to the table visits, right? RuPaul enters. Did you have any thoughts on any of the table visits?
No, not really. I mean, I think the one that sticks in my mind is where Brooke was kind of explaining why she did what she did. And she pretty much said, I wanted there to be at least one strong contender in each group. Somebody that I think it was online that there was a Team Britney performer in each of the groups. So, and that was her mindset, was that somebody from that winning, that's why she did that. So it's almost, she was not going out of her way, but she was trying to not be shady to anybody in doing that. And when she made the statement about the personality and Akira kind of made the face, I didn't hear, I have a feeling that Brooke misspoke.
No, I don't think she did.
Said, when she said high personality to somebody that is she said something that it wasn't no personality, but like she said something like lacking in personality or lower personality. So, but I can see where Akira
was energy. I think she meant more like high energy versus low energy.
Right. So, I think that was just Akira getting in her feelings.
Well,
I sort of feel like it was it wasn't meant to be a read. I think it was. Brooke strikes me as somebody that when Rue talks to her in these table visits, gets very nervous. And as somebody who occasionally gets nervous and says the wrong words, that might have been what was going on with Brooke.
But here's what I'm going to tell you.
What?
This Akira is not good at interpreting things clearly. She misinterpreted Plastique's family in the video and went and reported it over to Raja. Brooke never said, I put Evie with Akira because Evie has a lot of personality and Akira doesn't. What does it tell you about Akira's mental state when she assumes she's the low personality one?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Brooke never said Akira is the low personality one. She's like, no personality. I'm like, no one ever told you, Akira, that you have no personality. I would have, it's someone who would have been like, oh, maybe it's Akira, maybe it's Evie, you know?
Yeah.
But like, she immediately jumped to that it was her. So I think,
but that was a no win, because if she had said something like she said, then that immediately looks as shady. Mm-hmm. Because they ask him about this shit in confessionals. Mm-hmm. If she said something like, well, clearly I'm the stronger personality, then she looks delusional compared to Evie Oddly.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
so
I don't know. Okay. I want to say a couple of things. One, I want to talk about Rue talking to Sugarcane, and she tells Sugarcane that in Diva Worship, like, oh, well, you weren't that good in Diva Worship, right? Now, Sugarcane wasn't on the winning team, but if you remember Diva Worship, she's one of the co-hosts with Scarlet Envy. And if memory serves, right? Sugarcane was okay, right? It was Scarlet was going crazy and everybody else was a big fucking hot mess. But if you actually think of who was good in that challenge, I wouldn't have put Sugar near the bottom at all.
She had huge hair, if I remember correctly.
And she was trying to rein it in, if I remember.
Yeah, she was controlled. Mm-hmm. There was a control to her that some of the other ones just didn't have it.
So Rue's reading her for Diva Worship. I'm like, I remember her if anything, being invisible, but I wouldn't say she was bad. Well,
but she was also sort of forgettable.
Well, that's Sugarcane's problem. Just wait till you see tomorrow's Instagram meme, right? So, also, now this is going to be a bigger issue later. Maybe I should save it, but so for those of you who are wondering about why didn't we talk about there's been a controversy, Taylor, with people have been coming for Silky with the saying something Japanese to a Vietnamese person. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about this because we're going to have a larger discussion about race later. And also, this is obviously going to be a topic that we go into in some detail on the rumor mill, where there's actually people of color, including myself, on the rumor mill, right? And I'm going to go somewhere dangerous. I don't want to go too deep into it but I do think it's important, like I said, that we call balls and strikes on this show, at least that I do. I'm finding some very problematic things with the fandom, and particularly with the way Akaria, and to some degree Silky, but it's tricky with Silky because Silky's really just playing a version of herself. Also Silky doesn't really come down on Plastique that much. I'm burying the lead. I don't know how comfortable I am with Akaria constantly being shown. I'll give her this. It's the editors doing it. But with the show constantly showing Akaria criticizing Plastique for relying on the Vietnamese or the Asian stereotype character. When I feel every acting challenge that Akaria's in, she relies on a black stereotype character. And because that stereotype amuses RuPaul in a way that I don't necessarily has the best intentions, it's praised and now don't get me wrong, I think it's lazy for Plastique to rely on the Asian stereotype. Mm-hmm. It's no different from what Akaria Davenport does. And so right here, in here, Rue, what I think is weird is when Rue is talking to Plastique, she pretty much tells her, all right, you've done the Asian stereotype twice, we're done. We've seen it. Yet, later, encourages. So, you know what? won't even hold it against Akaria, because Rue straight up told her, she named 3 YouTube viral videos that involve black people from lower socioeconomic standing and the things that they say, right? And so Taylor's nervously looking at the chat room. And so... and encourages Akaria to pursue those stereotypes that we see in those videos. So she encourages Akaria. No, am I saying that right? Encourages Akaria to pursue those stereotypes, blow those stereotypes up, yet comes down on Plastique for playing up to those stereotypes. And this is the first time we see it. It'll be more important later. But I just wanted to address that now. And then, okay, so there we go. So any other thoughts on the workroom, on the table visits, all of that?
No, everything's fine.
All right, so we're good. We're good with then the table visits. We're done. Everything's been said that it needs to be said. All right, perfect. All right, now, you know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do something very unusual, which is weird. I'm gonna take the break right here, actually.
Okay.
So we'll be back right after this.
This is Amy Poehler. My new movie, Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, is coming to theaters June 14th, and it's making me feel joy and sadness and anger, definitely some disgust, and I think a little fear. But I'm also feeling these new emotions like anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui.
It's what you call the boredom.
Okay, that one was weird. It's gonna be the feel everything movie of the summer. Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, rated PG, parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters June 14th. Get tickets now.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
We're back.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about LADP. The first one up we have is Back Alley Butt Pads, starring Silky Nutmeg Ganache and Sugar Cane. In Back Alley Butt Pads, the police are called over to investigate a woman selling black market butt pads. Silky does well, while Sugar Cane was underwhelming as a disgruntled customer. Your thoughts on this sketch, Taylor?
Well, I mean, it was a whole lot of Silky and not a lot of Sugar. Mm-hmm. And which is ironic. Insert diabetes joke here.
Oh no, gosh! When our friend Mike Lawson hears this,
I know. I did that specifically for Mike. It was a lot of Silky, so I think you can tell how I felt about it. It was just not. It was not super good. I think that if Sugar had been able to flesh out her character more. Mm-hmm. It would have been better if there had been a little bit more balance to it. I think it would have been a little more better. Mm-hmm. But I think that it was Silky being Silky, which is being loud, overbearing, and obnoxious.
Mm-hmm. All right. Very good. It's one of these things where Silky did do well. Don't get me wrong. She was funny. She sold it. She committed to the character. And you know what? I will give Silky that she made that sketch actually funny. Okay? At times. There were some very funny parts to it. I think that's why they placed it at the top of the four. But what I don't understand is why, maybe it's because I ran out of people, I feel Sugar did as well as someone who's not trained in sketch or improv could do in a situation where you have a person who's overbearing and loud taking over.
Okay. Yes, I agree with that, which is why I think she was safe, which is why I think she wasn't on the bottom. She was in the bottom three. Sugar wasn't in the bottom three.
Sugar was in the bottom three. It was Sugar, Vanjie.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, let me rephrase that. That's part of the reason why Sugar did not have to lip sync.
Okay,
I think because they recognized who she was up against. I guess my problem with this is improv. Now, I am clearly not a comedian. I only really know from comedy from what I've heard you talk about and from what I have just seen, having experienced various media with comedy. But improv is really kind of about give and take. And improv is about supporting your fellow players.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
This is more of a Lori question. I've never really done sketch or improv, but yes, I know a little bit about it, and yes.
Okay. Well, that's kind of has been my take on improv, is that if it's just one person up there and everybody kind of standing around them, then it's not really, then it's just sort of watching a monologue with helpers kind of thing. So in that regard, when you compare it to, for example, compare that skit to another successful skit, which would be Akira and Evie. Mm-hmm. Akira and Evie were definitely playing off of each other. And they were each taking, where when she made the comment about Marky Mark and they played back and forth. Whereas anytime Sugar was trying to talk, Silky was screaming over her. Mm-hmm. It felt very much like with The Bitchler, where it was Trixie and Milk, and every time Trixie was trying to say something, Milk was, and it was that same dynamic. Do you remember that?
I remember that very well.
Yeah. So in that regards, that is why I think if Sugar had been given an opportunity, I think she could have been even better. I think it could have been. She was a character that I wanted to know more about, which is talking about that she was the Reverend's wife that was a widow and now she had a young man and all that kind of thing. But then I think she became so flustered by the fact that she couldn't talk, couldn't flesh it out, that she became almost confused at that point. And it became very much where you're like, wait, what's going on with this person now? I don't understand what's happening.
Well, what's funny is, if I remember correctly, Milk was criticized for that, right? Which I don't know if that's the episode Milk Went Home, but that was seen as a criticism for Milk during that challenge, and but yet Silky makes RuPaul laugh. But this should have been a criticism for Silky for this challenge.
I agree.
Silky was very funny, but she didn't allow Sugar to have a chance to have any say whatsoever.
See, and you keep saying Silky. I don't think Silky was funny at all.
It was funny.
Why? Why was it funny?
I don't know why. I thought, she would just handle things so well. Like the part where the cop pulls up and she even says like, "Oh, another customer, gonna get that government money." I don't know why I thought that was so funny. When the part when she was looking for what kind of butt pads Fortune would use, I thought was funny. When she was talking about the kind of butt pads that Cheyenne's wife would wear. I don't know. I felt everything that Silky said was very funny. Now, did it play into Silky's character?
Silky sold it. Silky sold it.
Yeah.
And in that regards, but selling it and it being funny, I think, are two different things.
But I talked about this.
It just felt very Silky to me.
I talked about this. I don't know if it was on the First Response or on one of the billion shows that I do, about how there are comedians who can sell very mediocre jokes by just slamming it with attitude. Okay, and right. Silky can do that. Silky can make it funny by just slamming it with attitude. The joke itself may not have been that funny, but she did it. Now, but how is Sugarcane supposed to wrestle control of the sketch from Silky? Cheyenne Jackson couldn't even put her in the car by his own admission. They had to legit wrestle her to get in the car. Now that shows commitment on her end, but. Yeah. It shows you that how if the person's willing to actually fight the actors to not get in the police car, how is Sugar going to get in there?
Well, but that's the problem. That's the problem, is that you would hope, and maybe this is just the way my brain works, but if you see Sugar struggling, if Silky sees Sugar struggling, try saying that 5 times fast. You would hope Silky would do something to help bring Sugar up, and to help kind of have that, thinking about, while it was a scripted thing and it wasn't an improv, when you think about Bianca and Trinity, when they had to do the I'm a streetwalker and I'm a working mom, we're both we're both working women sort of thing for some commercial. And at one point, Trinity was having a hard time. And I always remember Bianca standing there and she goes, "You got this, bitch." I remember saying that. Now, granted, that was just trying to support an actor and it wasn't in the moment, but I feel like there's something Silky could have done to try to bring Sugar up a little bit more than she did. You're right, but is that surprising with Silky's personality? No, and that's why I don't like Silky. Yes, but then are you going to extend that to Brooke? Because Brooke did the exact same shit this week. No, and I think it was... There's a difference there. There is a difference. I agree it's shitty on both. I agree it's shitty on both sides. However... I think the difference with Brooke is, I think Brooke, this is not her. When you compare, the difference is that with Brooke, I almost feel like Brooke got. Well, you know what? Why don't we jump in at the next one? Okay. It's Indecent Exposure at the Trailer Park with Nina West and Brooklyn Heights. In Indecent Exposure at the Trailer Park, the police respond to a call of indecent exposure. When they arrive, Brooklyn Heights is sunbathing nude. She uses her dance moves for some reason and works so much with the cops that she fails to give Nina her cue. Nina exits the trailer on her own initiative, and the scene starts, and then I don't know what happens. Brooke didn't live there. Did they make love? Taylor, your thoughts on continue your thoughts here on Indecent Exposure Trailer Park. It feels like the difference is that with Brooke, not being a comedian, Brooke got lost. It feels like Brooke got lost in all of the stuff, whereas Silky, it felt more like she sort of knew what she was doing. And I think that Brooke maybe didn't realize how long she was going before she said the Q word, or just whatever it was. But there feels like it wasn't. I don't think Brooke was doing it deliberately, whereas I feel like Silky was focused on Silky Silky was focused on herself. She didn't care about Sugar. I think that eventually when Nina came into the skit, they worked off of each other. Silky was never going to let Sugar work with her. It was all about Silky. Whereas I feel like Brooke just kind of got lost in things. And then once Nina came in, it was almost like a reminder of, oh shit, yeah, I'm supposed to be working with her on this.
Mm-hmm. You see, okay, I disagree with you. I think you're being an apologist for Brooke. From what I've seen from what Brooke did is, and I can only relate to stand-up comedy, but a lot of times, especially one of the most grievous errors you could do or insulting, horrible things you can do as a comic is doing something called running the light. So when you're doing stand-up, let's say they give you 10 minutes, unless you ask otherwise, at around 9 minutes, the person running the show will give you a light. And that light means you have a minute. It's not a hard minute. It just means you know the joke you're on, wrap it up, right? Finish your joke, get the fuck off, okay?
Right.
And you have comedians, especially newer comedians, who will, even though some veterans do this too, that are like, I'm doing fucking well. I'm just going to run the fucking light. I'm just going to run the motherfucking light. And who gives a fuck about anybody else on this show? I'm going to run the motherfucking light. I'll do as much fucking time as I want. I'm killing. I'm not going to just get off the stage. I'm going to go. And I felt that's what Brooke was essentially doing. I don't know what the equivalent is in sketch. Maybe Lori in the chat room can tell us. But I got the equivalent. She was running the light. She got in there and, okay, Taylor's laughing. What happened?
Lori just made a horrible joke in the chat room. I'll tell you later.
Okay. So, I like how Lori's doing her own show, her own performance. I used to she's answering questions. She's doing
she's not answering questions.
She's doing a whole appearance in the chat room. Okay. So anyway, what Brooke essentially did, by the way, if you're on Patreon, you get an alert. It doesn't matter what level. You could be on $1 Patreon supporter or $3. It doesn't matter. You get an alert whenever we go live.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be seeing Lori do the Lori Roggenkamp show in the chat room right now. Anyway, Brooklyn Heights was essentially got on there, was nervous, landed up doing well, okay? And so she starts essentially running the light, taking up the energy, because she did. I don't know if she's not, now I don't know if this part's intentional, but she doesn't give Nina the cue to come in. Okay, she doesn't give Nina the cue that's necessary to come in, because Brooke is also not a team player. Brooke does not play as well with a team either. And that's the difference, is Bianca is a team player. Bianca Del Rio was a team player. Brooke and Silky, as we've seen many times, now Brooke, I don't know, for whatever reason gets a pass, are in it for themselves. There's no team player here with this thing. Taylor, any thoughts on that before I move on to the next topic with Brooke?
I can see that point. It just the energy with the two of them felt different to me.
Okay, so now let's move on to an even more egregious part is Brooklyn Heights stealing. I'm going to call it stealing a joke from The Simpsons. At one point, I can't remember if it's Fortune Feimster or Cheyenne Jackson. They ask her something and she calls herself, now she says a level 4 vegan. She doesn't eat anything that casts a shadow. And I remember thinking, that sounds really familiar. Well, it is, because it's from The Simpsons. I don't have my phone on me. It's like season 8, episode 12 or something. I could be wrong there. But here is the joke. Actually, I pulled it from The Simpsons. Here we go.
The Earth is the best. That's why I'm a vegetarian.
Well, that's a start.
I was thinking of going vegan.
I'm a level 5 vegan. I won't eat anything that casts a shadow.
Wow.
That's literally the joke. Almost word for word, right? Now, by the way, look, She's done this twice in this episode. Now you're saying, well, maybe, well, no. Now,
I'm not saying get mealy mouth like that. That's
yeah, okay. But the point is, later on, this Natasha Lyonne calls out that joke to Brooklyn Heights and says to her, that was a really funny joke. And Brooklyn Heights just nods and is like, almost like, yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe, like I said earlier, maybe she did say something right there. We've seen that in the past, where they didn't show it. But, like, for instance, it happened with Aja during All-Stars 3. I don't remember what it was. But Aja then went on social media the next day and says, guys, I don't remember what it was. I actually really blah, 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 blah. From what I've seen so far before, as of taping, Brooke has not mentioned it. Brooke has not brought it up. Thank you. So, I think it's egregious. I think she's a joke thief. And I think it's horrible what she did. And we're going to get back to this again during Elimination Day, how smug she is. Wasn't a big fan of Brooklyn Heights this episode. Not a big fan.
Okay, and that's what I'm talking about with the editing, was that this felt very much like it feels like they've wanted us to love Brooke so far, the previous 8 episodes. And then all of a sudden you kind of get this weird, like, when Nina's freaking out after they do the skit, as they're getting ready for the runway, mm-hmm. and they're kind of painting Brooke as this like Machiavellian, like scheming, I think we're great, I think I'm good, like this really confident. It was weird. I'm like, why are they doing that? Why are they painting Brooke like this right now? I don't get it. But okay, I don't completely disagree with you on this. There's just parts of it that I think that I respectfully disagree with you.
Yeah, because Brooke is white and Silky's black. All right, let's talk about cat fight in front of a liquor store. The comps are called to a cat fight in front of a liquor store. When they arrive, Vanjie and Plastique are literally in cat suits fighting. No one knows why they're fighting. It doesn't make much sense. Plastique slips into a Vietnamese accent, even though she said she wouldn't. It's a mess. Taylor the Latte Boy, your thoughts on this sketch?
It was bad. It was just bad from the beginning. It was just a lot of screaming and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. The one part that I thought that she could have really sort of sold it was at one point when I think Vanjie pours some of the milk out. Mm-hmm. If Plastique had actually licked some of the milk up from the ground, that was really the only thing that I think, and it wouldn't have saved it, but it would have been, she would have shown commitment on her part. But I mean, like Vanjie said, she started hugging Cheyenne as soon as she could. And we said that was the cue for, if you don't know, if you go blank, just do that. So it was really, really bad. And it was just screaming. Like you didn't really know what was going on through most of the.
I couldn't tell you a thing of what happened in that sketch.
Yeah.
Do you know why they were fighting? Something about a man, but it's something about milk.
Something about she stole my milk, but then you stole my man. And then they were fighting over the milk, and then it just turned into where I'm going to be famous on Broadway. I'm going to be on Cats, but the other one's from the hood, and it just was not.
It was awful. Now let me ask you this question: what did you think about the? It comes up later, but right here, your thoughts about her slipping into that Vietnamese accent.
I honestly didn't even hear it. Because it's just screaming, mm-hmm. And then at one point, she says something, and then they show Silky and Akira looking at each other, and Akira making the "when all else fails, go Asian." Mm-hmm. And I watched it again today, and that's when I heard the Asian accent.
Yes,
I didn't even hear it.
I heard it the first time. Now, this Akira. Look, I'm against all races today. We're going to see in her sketch right now. Who is she to say when all else fails, play up to the Asian stereotypes? Do you want to comment on this white man, Taylor Latte Boy? It's, twerking girls in corner disturbance. Akira and Evie. Akira, C. Davenport, and Evie are fighting over a corner where they twerk. They fight in front of the cops for a while before they both realize they're mother and daughter, and then they're arrested and they twerk. Your thoughts on this sketch, Taylor?
I thought it was hysterical. As a white man, I thought watching two black queens scream and yell at each other was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
That's kind of racist.
I love minstrel shows.
Jamila Zara, co-host. That was Taylor the Latte Boy saying that, not me.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was. I enjoyed seeing Akira in particular do something outside of the box. I feel like, for as much as she took offense to the comment, meant or not, as far as not showing a lot of personality and staying very controlled because of the fact that she's comes from pageants, watching her kind of play into this and doing things was fun to watch.
No, look, don't get me wrong. Akira deserves every sort of praise and win that she gets on this challenge. First of all, it was the only sketch that had whether you agree with how good it is or not, it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? You could follow the storyline. You knew what was going on. The characters were definitely delineated and well developed. You can even say that for Evie. She was sort of like a millennial. She played young. It was very clear who the mom was and who the daughter was. For being two amateurs who don't do sketch, it was actually very well done. Okay, I will give them that. And Akira did a great job. She had a developed character that was funny. My problem isn't with Akira doing that character, because I just praise Silky for doing essentially the same character. It's for the hypocrisy for criticizing Plastique earlier. That's where my problem is. Akira deserves the win. It was the best sketch. I don't know if it was necessarily super funny, but it was the best of the four. Okay.
Well, but they were assigned that skit too.
But here's the deal. There should be a phrase, don't sleep on a Davenport. And what I mean is, Akira has been underestimated, and she's a Curiosity Davenport, and Kennedy Davenport, even on All-Stars 3 and on her own season, was always underestimated. Both Akira and Kennedy, there's something about the Davenport girls, maybe because they have resting bitch face and not a lot of energy, they are underestimated along the entire way. Okay? Yeah. And
I've seen that theory earlier today on Reddit too.
Oh, really?
They a lot of comparing Akira to Kennedy as far as seemed like low energy, but then turned it out on challenges and or looks.
But yeah, always remember Kennedy always, no matter what you think of personality, always crushed a comedy or acting challenge. Always so good in them. Snatch game, everything, right? So I think the same thing with Akira. Don't sleep on these Davenports, man. They will sneak up behind you and they will be so good. But on the other end, don't criticize for someone for doing the same thing that essentially you're doing. Again, like I said earlier, I don't necessarily blame Akira because RuPaul encouraged her to do so. All right, it's Elimination Day, and Nina is overanalyzing her own performance. Nina also feels like she was thrown to the side and left to dry when Brooke felt things were going well. Meanwhile, Silky is fooling around and not putting on makeup because the look this week is face kini, and she is only going to apply minimum face. Plus, she doesn't think she's going to lip sync. Taylor, your thoughts on Elimination Day?
The Silky thing, again, it goes back to arrogance. It goes back to that whole, I don't have to do anything. I've got it all in the bag. That was such an arrogance of, I don't even have to put on makeup to go out on the runway. I'm so confident at my job and so confident at what I've done, and that they're just going to love me no matter what. America's going to love me, and you're going to love me.
Okay, well, here it is again. I'm not the world's biggest Silky fan, but she's right. She is right. And we'll get to this during the judges' deliberation. We can talk about it here. Why would she need to put on face when she's not going to take her mask off, even if she lip syncs? Vanjie, who lip syncs, doesn't take her mask off.
Okay, because everybody else, they expected a full look. And
Who
a
said
full
that?
look. Huh?
Who said that?
Well, clearly the panel did. The panel did once they were all up there.
No, but I think, and this is where we're going to get... Remind me to talk about Michelle during the judges panel. She was really a fucking annoying me this week, this Michelle Visage. Because she's clearly not a judge. She's a puppet for the producers and RuPaul. RuPaul just sits there and doesn't fucking say shit, right? Meanwhile, she's telling Michelle what to say during the judges panel, okay? And the producers too. So clearly... someone told Michelle what happened in the makeup room, and then Michelle just suddenly decided to ask her about this makeup. That's fucking crazy ass bullshit. It's stupid, and it's dumb. Silky's right. Why would she need to do full? Do you think? Okay, let me ask you this question. They said that this face kini was a throwback to last year. Do you think RuPaul was wearing full face under that face kini last year?
Your tone is awfully pointed right now.
I'm not mad at you. I'm just very animated.
I know. I was making a joke. I was doing an Evan. I don't know what to say, so I just pull a random quote from this previous season out of the air. But Ru had something covering her eyes. That's the difference. Ru had that stupid welder's goggle over her face. So whether she was, our eyes were done up or not, there was something that was taking away from the fact that she did or did not have makeup on. Mm-hmm. With Silky's mask, you could see bare eyebrow at that point. There was no mascara. There was no eyeliner. There was nothing. When everybody else, it'd be one thing if everybody else came out and nobody had anything over their eyes, that would be different. But the fact that she was the only one out of everybody that came out, she stands out, and not in a good way.
All right. Well, we'll have to agree that I'm right. Okay. I want to talk about something else. This is also going in the column of Brooke is a little piece of shit this week. All right. Brooke is making fun of this Nina in the confessional for being in her head about the sketch, right? Because Nina's nervous because she realizes she is the sugar in the sketch, and that Brooke railroaded all over her in the sketch. And now Nina's like, well, fuck. I needed to do well in this sketch. I'm known for doing well in these sketches, and Brooke just railroaded me in this sketch, and she's nervous. And then Brooke in the confessional makes fun of her like, Nina is just always so in her head. Oh my God, it's so fun. She's laughing hysterical like a crazy person. Does she remember the day before when she was, oh my God, let's not play against type. I'm really nervous. I don't want to play against type. And was all up in her head. And Nina was the one who was her pal and was like, you know what? I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do that for you. And now the next day when Nina's kind of in her head because she got railroaded by the person that she helped, now Brooke's laughing at her in the confessional and being a super fucking see you next Tuesday. What do you want to say, Taylor?
Nothing.
Why?
I agree with you. You made a valid point.
Brooke,
you made a very valid point.
Brooke. I'm not saying I dislike Brooke. This week they didn't portray her in the most positive light.
That's what I'm saying. But then they tried, like, where they kept talking about how Silky was doing her own thing, and they show like sugar rolling her eyes and stuff like that, and how everybody's annoyed with it. But yet, like, Ru is like everything Ru does. She like throws her head back, screaming, laughing, thinking the sugar's the funniest. It was a very Silky. I'm sorry, Silky. It was a very confusing episode. We have talked about how with the use of music, the use of edits, the use of shots, that kind of stuff tells you how you're supposed to feel in an episode. And I left this episode not knowing how I was supposed to feel about half of the people that I thought I knew how I felt about them this entire time.
By the way, I want to get into this before we go into the Patreon spiel. Is clearly also this episode was meant to play in a bar and not Home Alone. Rumor Mill co-host Jorge Munoz told me that the bar was going ape shit for these sketches. This was me the whole time looking at it. So I wasn't amused. Yeah. All right.
That was me for the reading challenge. I looked like I was constipated through the whole thing.
Yeah. If you enjoy this show, you might want to think about supporting it to help us keep the lights on. How can you do this? Join us over at patreon.com. There, if you sign up at the $3 Eat It level, you receive a brand new podcast in your own personal feed 6 out of 7 days of the week. On top of that, everyone, by the way, $1, $2, $3, everyone who pledges on Patreon gets access to live recordings and bonus content. Let me tell you something, Taylor. The Fatchler. Were you around for the Fatchler?
No.
So after the Fat Camp on Monday, Evan took off because it means like the show. By the way, Evan invited himself on this Fat Camp, and he acts like he's doing us the biggest favor being on this Fat Camp. He's like, "I gotta go, guys," and hangs up right away, right? Mm-hmm. So Lori and I hung out for a while afterwards, and listener Josh Hedgepeth came on the air with us.
Okay.
I don't know how this happened. We just were having him on just to talk to him. It turned into the dating game. All these people in the chat room got thirsty for him, and they started sending him pics. One person sent a dick pic, people were sending face shots, and now and also Josh is bisexual, so women were sending in pictures. They want to go on dates with Josh. Men, everybody was going after this Josh Hedgepath. So next Monday, we're going to get a report on what's happened with all that stuff. All right. That was an impromptu thing. So when you are a Patreon supporter, impromptu shows like that just happened. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to release, for those Patreon supporters, I'm going to release on a Patreon when I have a spare day, probably Monday morning to release it. All right. So for instance, this episode you're listening to now is actually about 15 minutes longer than for our Patreon supporters. Not only that, they get the episode commercial free. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to patreon.com/dragracerecap and sign up at the $3 level to get all this and more. That's patreon.com/dragracerecap. All right, now, Taylor, it is now time for the looks.
The looks.
All right, very good. Now, this week, the category is Facekini Fantasy. Facekini Fantasy. What you going to go through the looks, Taylor?
Yeah. Do you want to just go through everybody's because there's only the 8, or?
Yeah, but we're at 142 now. That time is not accurate. You're going to get a different time when you hear this. Yeah. So why don't we buzz through it? But yeah, do you want me to read them? I have them in order right here.
Okay, yeah.
All right, the first we have is Silky Nutmeg Ganache. She came down in a self-described fly outfit. I gave this score a 5.
But you are being generous because I give this look a 3. Well, first off, it wasn't a fly. It was definitely a roach because it didn't have wings. Secondly,
I think it was the cuntiest thing that Michelle said. I don't agree. Go ahead.
Okay. The second part of that is it committed a major sin for the runway. It looked so cheap.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She looked like she was wearing pleather, and the whole look was just horrible. So it's a 3 for me.
All right. Very good. Next, we have Sugar Cane. She was like a Victorian My Fair Lady Facekini kind of thing going. I gave it a 7. I actually really, really liked it.
The 7 sounds good. Yeah, I would definitely give it a 7.
You have any other thoughts on it?
I loved the silhouette of it. I thought it was a very original for Facekini, where you tend to think, considering especially the Club Kid thing that Ru did last season, that you would kind of think almost like a modern look of things. So to take a Victorian style silhouette, I thought was an interesting spin on it.
All right, very good. Next we have Brooklyn Heights. I don't even know how to describe Brooke's outfit.
Like a clockwork zebra. Because there were gears up the one sleeve and I think on the one shoulder.
Oh, okay. So like a mechanical. Because I'm going to use clockwork for Nina West. So like a mechanical gear driven zebra. Okay, I gave it an 8. I really like this look actually. And
I gave it a 9. I thought that it was, it was probably my favorite look of the night. And of course, because, Brooke's white, she obviously gets a bonus point for that.
Mm-hmm. wait. I feel like, Taylor, you seem pressed about something right now.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm kidding. Though I did really like her outfit, and I still would give it a 9.
All right, Vanessa Vanjie Mateo's next. She was a sex toy dominatrix. It seemed really basic to me, and I'm not even going with like what Michelle was saying and whatnot. It was a 6.
6 is exactly what I would give it as well.
Wow, we are literally eye to eye on this one. All right, next we have Plastique Tiara. She has no Facekini. She's sort of like dominatrix kind of thing, right?
It was reminiscent to me. What score would you give it?
5.
5. It was reminiscent to me of the outfit that Aja went home in on her season.
Yes, it was
where Aja had the crazy blonde like fried wig and the skirt, the skirt boning. It was a neat look. The makeup was interesting because it's sort of all of the makeup kind of bled away from the areas that you expected it to. Mm-hmm. So as a look, I would give this a 7. For the challenge, I would give it a 4.
Interesting. That's probably where I got my 5 because I just did it in my score, whereas like it would have been a 7, but I gave it a 5 because of the no Facekini.
Because it didn't meet the criteria of the challenge. Yeah. So as for that, it should be on the lower end. But as far as the look goes, it's a 7, which on the one hand, had I not seen a look like that before, and I think executed better with Aja, it would have got a higher score. But it just kind of felt like something we've seen before.
All right, very good. Next, we have Acaria C. Davenport. She's like in a plastic surgery outfit where it's just almost looks like she's like covered like a doll, like almost like a voodoo doll, but she's covered in like plastic surgery marks that a plastic surgeon might do before they do surgery on you. I gave it a 5. They seem to be the judges seemed a lot happier about it than I was. I wasn't super into this look. What about you, Taylor?
I wasn't super into it either. I didn't like her walk. She kept occasionally she would walk, but then she'd do things like she was touching herself and then it was really sensitive. So she'd pull her arms away. It was a very odd style. I have seen speaking of Michelle, I have seen a post on Reddit in which they use her quote for that. This is something we've never seen before. And then they immediately go to the, when Pearl did the conjoined twins challenge, and they did something similar, and she read pretty much the same look to filth.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so it's some of the hypocrisy in what Michelle said. I saw that on Reddit today. This episode
has a lot of hypocrisy in it. Oh, because you know what? I didn't mention this. Oh, well, I'll talk about it after. I'm going to talk about it in the part where we talk about this stuff. Sorry.
Okay.
But okay, the last one is Evie Oddly.
We missed another one, or were you saving that for later?
Who?
Nina.
Oh my gosh, I did miss Nina West. That was by accident. Let's talk about Nina. Oh, but you had something you wanted to say about this. So why don't we do Evie Oddly?
Okay.
And then we'll go back to Nina West. All right, Evie Oddly. She was like a sexy.
No, that's an opinion.
Oh, I'm using the description they had for themselves. A sexy monster from the Black Lagoon. I like the colors. The things I like. I gave it a 6. I could be convinced of a 5, but I gave it a 6.
No, that's a 3. I didn't like it. I didn't like the look. I didn't like the color combination. The lips. I get what she was trying to do, but it looked like it hurt. It looked like it was hurting her mouth, and I'm distracted at that point, thinking that she's cutting into her mouth, and that's not something I want to look at. So no.
All right, so finally, now there's a controversy that just erupted today on the internet about this look. So why don't we discuss the look, and then I'll fade out and we'll go into the controversy. Nina West, she did like a Lee Bowery inspired Clockwork Orange look with a little bit of Mr. Peanut with the mustache. I loved it. I gave it a 9. I thought it was fantastic.
I would give this look a 9 as well. This was one of the few looks that I literally went, ooh, as soon as she came out, because it was one of the things that I've seen a lot to describe it is very polished, as far as it looked very well tailored, and especially when they've been talking about proportionizing with her and everything, I thought it was a great look. There's something, I love the look of a bowler hat. Particularly when it's used well, and this was used in such an interesting, creative way that it definitely was something that I really liked. The only reason I didn't give it a 10 was I would have liked to have seen a little more color, particularly maybe some sort of color, like a pop of color that didn't go with the rest of it. So even if it was something where she had a flower in her lapel that was like a bright, like lime green or a bright blue or something, that would have just been something that would have just given it that one little point over the edge. It would have been a perfect look for me. But otherwise, I thought it was a great look.
All right, very good. Now that's the look, but we're going to continue talking about this look with a controversy that erupted today on the internet. Taylor, go ahead. Give me your 2 cents.
Yeah. So apparently another queen over in the UK, Marnie Scarlett, posted pictures of herself from 10 years ago and pretty much accused Nina of stealing her idea of a look, even though Nina said that she originally got the look from Lee Bowery from many, many years ago. And going to the place, the difference between Brooke and the accusations of stealing, or the actual stealing of jokes and stuff, Nina handled this almost immediately. Not only where she commented on Marnie Scarlett's page, but also was quick to add pictures of not only Marnie Scarlett, but other queens who have worn similar outfits, and made them all as sort of a little portfolio on Instagram. And said it was never my intention. I think it's great that we've all been inspired by Lee Bowery. And she said it in a way that should come as no surprise to anybody who is a fan of Nina that it seemed very, very gracious, very, not trying to get defensive, just kind of very open as far as this is what I was going for. I definitely see the similarities. Please, everybody support not only Marnie Scarlett, but other creative queens that have gone through the same way. So I thought, considering everything we've seen about Brooke and Brooke's lack of comments on jokes that she's used, to see this, I think was a definite juxtaposition.
Yeah. And, to kind of talk about what you were saying earlier, I think Nina West did a really, really good job addressing it. And it's good that she addressed it. Someone in the chat room was saying, oh, come on, Joe. Brooke's a drag queen. Why do you expect them to have original jokes? That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, it's the same thing here. Couldn't you, in theory, say the same thing here? Like, oh, come on, Joe, they're drag queens. How can you expect them to have original looks? And there's a difference between being inspired by something and then outright stealing it. And even Nina, you said, admitted, and well, not even admitted, but gave Lee Bowery the credit for the inspiration. I don't mind being inspired, but at least give the person credit. Like I told you, I literally rip off the jokes. It's literally, I take the person's joke from Reddit and I put it on Instagram. However, I give them credit. That's the problem, is Brooke did not give credit. At least not what we saw on the show. And she hasn't gone on social media and said the same thing and said, yeah, I did do that. Right? Okay. Well, good on Brooke. And also Shea Coulee, I think you mentioned this, came to her defense. And
yes, I saw that on Reddit earlier as well.
So Luke Stammen says Nina is a class act. She sure is. Okay, let us move on. On the main stage, Michelle is problematic, while Evie and Nina were immediately called safe and sent backstage. Akuria and Brooke were high. Placed high. They weren't actually, high. Silky was somewhere in the middle. Suga, Plastique, and Vanjie were low. After the deliberations, Akuria was named the winner of the challenge, while Plastique and Vanjie were forced to go head-to-head in a lip-sync battle for their lives. The song? Hoot Boy by Fantasia Barrino. In the end, Vanjie lived to see another day, while Plastique Tiara was asked to sashay away. Taylor the Latte Boy. Any final thoughts on the episode?
We had a double Shantae You Stay last week. This could have easily been a double sashay away.
Yeah, this would have been the one to do it. You're right, yeah.
It was not, talk about a forgettable song. I've never heard that song in my life. It was an annoying song. Neither one of them were very good. You can definitely see where Vanjie had the advantage between the two. Because also with that, Vanjie also was able to emote a little bit more and with a mask on as compared to Plastique, who had taken the mask off. I use that in rabbit ears. Just very not good. Just not good. But I went into this figuring there's no way they're going to have lip syncs at the level of last week's 2 weeks in a row. But that went from a lip sync that was like a 10 to a lip sync that was like a 2. I was figuring, this week's lip sync will be like a 7 or an 8. No, it plummeted. I can't imagine. I don't know who's going home next. I don't know the order of the people. I know who's going home, who when, and all that kind of stuff. I can't see Vanjie lasting much longer. And I don't want you to make some statement of, I guess we'll find out. I don't want you to say anything. It's just, she's losing her luster for me.
I'm giving Taylor the most stone cold.
Yes, I'm giving you resting bitch face from Joe right now.
RBF, because I don't want to tip my hand on anything. All right. So anyway, all right. Look, you're entitled to that opinion. Very good. I mean, I don't disagree. I think I'll be honest with you. I think Vanjie has gotten a pass a lot on this season. I think the pass is starting to run out.
Yeah. Well, it feels like it almost feels like they've kept her around because there's no way Rue was going to take the chance of bringing back this one episode queen from last season and only have her last 2 or 3 episodes. Okay.
Well, look, up until now, though, I think Vanjie has made a case to be there.
No, I agree with that, but she hasn't made a case for me to be top 4.
No, you're right. I agree.
So let alone the crown. You know, I just feel like her time is running out.
All right, very good. Any other thoughts on this episode?
Just not the Untucked that's 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back.
I turned it off.
Yeah, I figured at one point I was waiting to get the text message from you saying if there's something I need to know. But I got about halfway through and thought, no, this is okay. This was another one of these episodes where at one point, we had an internet problem where all of a sudden the show like kind of paused for a second. So we had to like leave the show and then come back in. And it said something like 1 hour, 7 minutes left, because I guess it included that and Untucked all together as one big thing on DirecTV. And I went, that's got to be wrong. It can't only be 9:53, and looked at my phone and was like, you've got to be fucking kidding. Like, this is ridiculous that it was an episode that just took forever. What did you think of Cheyenne Jackson and Fortune Feimster?
I talked about this yesterday on the first response, but Fortune Feimster I thought was a really, really, really good judge to have on there because I don't know why they didn't play this up, but she is a very, very experienced sketch comedian. She knows her fucking shit. She's in the Sunday Company for the Groundlings, which is one of the, if not the most prestigious, sketch groups in the country. And you don't just get there resting on your laurels. I mean, they have a really good taste. I mean, they rejected Lori Roggenkamp. So, actually, to speak to Lori Roggenkamp, I said this in the show, very, 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 very funny, famous people have been rejected by the Sunday Company. They only have so many spots. Yeah. And so Fortune is very funny. I think she was a good person to have on there, had really good insight. Cheyenne Jackson was surprisingly very good, held his own, showed his acting chops. We forget that Cheyenne Jackson is actually a respected actor with Broadway experience. And usually when you're an actor, you do take some sort of improv and sketch comedy to kind of bone up those skills. And I actually thought Natasha Lyonne was very good too.
Yeah, I've never been a really big fan of hers, but I enjoyed her as a judge.
Yeah. I thought all the judges did a great job. And I thought on the sketches, I was thinking Fortune and Cheyenne could easily have been on Reno 911.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a very nice email from someone who pointed out that they said essentially, speaking of hypocrisy, the person's name is, where are you? Why can't I find you? Samantha, a woman named Samantha wrote a very nice email where she was saying that there is hypocrisy because, speaking about Brooke stealing jokes, that Manila Luzon in episode 8 of season 3 was actually put in the bottom 2 for your favorite lip sync because in that comedy challenge, the judges thought her jokes weren't very original. I went back and watched it. It's not the same. They didn't accuse Manila of stealing the jokes. I think they were more accusing her of having like hacky jokes. Like overdone jokes that we've all heard a million times, groan-worthy jokes. So it wasn't quite stealing it and not giving credit. It was just more for doing hacky jokes. Okay. And I also want to address something else that I'll probably address in depth on the rumor mill. But before we do Taylor, and I know everyone should know I've known Taylor for a long time. I've been doing podcasts with him for a long time. You seem pressed. What is going on? Share your feelings.
There's nothing to share. I feel certain ways about things. That doesn't sound the way I mean it does. But when race comes up on this show, it makes me nervous. And I don't necessarily like talking about it because I get that I just don't like talking about it. That's all.
Well, look, I'm going to use, I've never had a private conversation about this, but if I had to guess,
I'm glad we're doing this now publicly with RuPaul.
I get well, you don't engage. I get the sense that you feel, now I could be totally putting words in your mouth, that you feel as a white man, you do not have not that you don't have an opinion on race, but that you are not allowed a platform to share your opinions on race. Is this true?
To a degree.
But I would say, as the president of People of Color, that I think, no, I can only speak for myself. I think what people of color, at least for me, I know there are people of color who would be like, no, white people can never talk on race. For me personally, it's when you get into when people get into white splaining that it becomes problematic. But if you have thoughts that it doesn't go into white splain, I don't think you should be afraid whatsoever.
Well, okay. I appreciate that. And okay.
Yeah, unless you start the comment with you people, I think you're
or those people.
Or those people. 'Cause I'm going to get into race right now again. And I would love for you to engage, but if you're too nervous, that's fine.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
This Michelle Visage, she can go fuck herself. Right?
Okay.
Because Plastique says, now I'm not saying whether Plastique is lying. I'm not saying whether Plastique is telling the truth. But on this main stage, Plastique Tiara says, that is my real accent. And Michelle tells her, no, it's not. Who the fuck are you, Michelle Visage? Right? Because you don't think British people, when they're doing an accent, and especially when you are a person of a certain race, especially with a strong accent that you have been made fun of your whole life, you learn to hide it or try to hide it, to try and pass. And so even now, Plastique has a slight accent, but one could make the argument, and I'm not saying this is true or not, I'm just saying the only person who really knows is Plastique.
Yeah.
And for Michelle to sit there and say, no, that is not true, what the fuck does she know? Right?
Yeah.
And I think that was offensive to not accept Plastique at her word. Now, look, it could turn out that Plastique is lying. I'm not saying Plastique's telling the truth, right? And maybe Plastique, and I'll be honest with you, I do think there is a possibility that Plastique is putting on a white voice for the show because she doesn't want to have that thick Vietnamese accent on the show. But I do also think that she did that joke as a joke. She was floundering in the sketch, and she went to the easy joke with the accent. She just did it.
Yeah.
Vanjie was, I'm not going to start from a 10 and started from a 10, right? So I do think that, but I think it's a very complicated situation. But what I'm offended by is Michelle telling a person who's Asian what their background is, what they're doing, whether they're doing it or not. The truth is she doesn't know. And and Michelle, actually, I really liked what Michelle said at one point. Michelle said that the difference between Asian stereotype versus Asian pride. But my question, and it still applies, is why can't this apply to the other people of color on the show too? I just sort of feel, and I'm not coming down on black people or Latinos or any other race, but I do feel Asians have a very, very, very tough time on this show. And to come down on an Asian person and tell them the difference between Asian pride and Asian stereotype, I was telling you,
it's a privileged statement. It's very much a statement of somebody of privilege.
And actually, I didn't mean this. I just realized it right now. It's the kind of conversation where I was saying, unless you go into this territory, that's when you get into dangerous territory. Michelle Visage, in this case, is the prime example of, I'm going to white-splain to you how you are. No, I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm just saying it's none of your fucking business. Why are you to lecture her from your judge's table? That would be as if I lectured her about how she thinks that crystals will solve your diseases,
Yeah.
So that's sort of my problem with what Michelle said, and she can officially go fuck herself. I know there are a lot of Michelle fans. The email address is allrightmary@gmail.com. Feel free to send all your hate there. Taylor, is there anything else for this episode that you want to talk about?
No. I think we've talked a lot about a subpar episode. We've kind of beat this one to death.
Well, there were a lot of topics. By the way, I do recognize that we didn't talk about the whole controversy with Silky speaking in Japanese to a Vietnamese person and all this drama. Look, at the end of the day, Plastique didn't seem to have a problem with it. She was laughing along. Silky was fine. Everyone should mind their own fucking business. All right. Do you have any thoughts on that, Taylor?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, then that's going to conclude this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. Join us next week and every week as we continue to discuss, dissect, and deconstruct each brand new episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 11. So, for Taylor the Latte Boy and myself,
sashay away until next week.
Want to share your thoughts about Drag Race? Email us at dragracerecap@gmail.com. For up-to-the-minute news about the show, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Drag Race Recap. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Drag Race Recap. For bonus content and to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Drag Race Recap. Taylor has his own podcast. It's called Pod Is My Co-Pilot, and you can find it at podismycopilot.com or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Taylor on Twitter and Instagram at PIMCTaylor. Follow Joe Betance on Instagram and Twitter at Joe Betance. That's BETANCE. The outro music was written by Lucian Piani and arranged and performed by Alex Lefebvre. You can find Alex Lefebvre on Instagram at Alex Lefebvre Music. To find all of our old episodes, visit our website at dragracerecap.com. You can also find other Afterthought Media shows like Hello Uglies at hellouglies.com and Catching Up at catchinguppodcast.com. Drag Race Recap is an Afterthought Media production.